Michael, why don't you take it away? This is Michael Kaplan from NVIDIA, who's going to walk us through the new stuff in iray.
Hi, my name is Michael Kaplan. I'm the Director of Product Management for software rendering products at NVIDIA. And today I'm very pleased to be able to show you a new feature of the Subscription Advantage Pack in 3ds Max that's be coming out later this year. If you remember, some of you may remember last year at this same conference, we previewed 3ds Max running iray as a batch renderer. How many here are familiar with Max and iray? Yeah, some people. So up until now, iray has been only a production renderer in Max. It's been for static frames, final frames, animations. But one of the requests that we got from many people was to have an active shade implementation of interactive iray. And the reason this is very interesting is because iray is inherently a progressive global illumination renderer where you can immediately see in a very short period of time what your final image is going to look like. So without further ado, let me give you a little demonstration of the next version of Max. First thing to notice is that now under Assign Renderer, you can assign the iray renderer to active shade. Couldn't do that before. Second thing to notice is that you now have a nice panel that Autodesk has put in that allows you to select which resources are allocated to iray rendering. So in this case, we have a single Quadro 6000 board in the system that's being used to render both the viewport and also for iray computation. And however, it is also possible to add other boards to the system with our new Maximus configuration. So for example, I could add a Tesla board just to accelerate the iray rendering, and that would show up in this dialog, and you could select which combination you want to use. So all I have to do is run active shade, and we do a little bit of scene translation, and we render. So the first thing to notice is that we have a full active shade live iray rendering as we work in the viewport. And you can do any of the viewport operations that you normally would do without restarting the render and get an immediate feedback, photorealistic feedback. Now, one thing that's unique about this is not a preview of the final frame rendering. This is the final frame rendering. This is exactly the same samples, the same pixels, the same results, full global illumination, no interpolation, no tricks, no controls that you would get in the iray final frame rendering. The only difference is you have to wait a certain amount of time to get the final frame. But you can very quickly see with only one GPU what that lighting is in this case. So for example, if I bring up the material editor, oh, that's not the material editor, hold on. Bring up the material editor, select the material on here. Now let's say I want to change that to chrome. You'll immediately see that reflected in the scene with all the full globe illumination characteristics. Another thing I could do is I could grab an object here, and I can move it around, and that will be reflected in the scene almost instantaneously. So this is really a whole new way of workflow, because no longer do you have to set up the scene, do a batch rendering or production rendering to understand what it's going to look like. You can set up the scene and immediately change the lights, change the camera, change the materials, change the geometry, and immediately see what it's going to look like. We think this will significantly enhance the workflow. Now let me bring up another scene, which is more of an architectural production scene. This is actually a production scene from one of our architectural Max users. So it's representative of some real work. So we're just loading it into Max. So again, we have the active shade dialog. We see that iray is selected as the active shade renderer. We're dedicating one GPU to it. And I'll just start it up. In this case, we have a difficult lighting situation. All of the light is coming from an HDR environment map, which is then sending its light through a window, through actual glass into the room. We also have some local lights that are in this light fixture here that are glowing and lighting the environment. So this is quite a difficult lighting situation. And yet, even with one GPU, in seconds, I can get a very good idea of what this is going to look like. So let's just move around a little bit. Get a different view. Oh, I picked the wrong view to start with. Let me start this again. I think I was rendering the side view. A little bit of setup time. Okay, so now let's zoom in on the kitchen scene. And let's say we want to cook dinner for a larger collection of people than we were planning. So we would like to, for example, make the pot bigger, scale the pot up, make a really large dinner. And you can see that we have the full global illumination active all the time. Let's say, for example, this teacup is actually glass instead of porcelain. So we can select that cup. We can change it to physical glass with full refraction, reflection, caustics, everything. Then we can change our view a little bit. Zoom in on the scene. And now if I wait for a few minutes, you'll basically see the final frame. So just to show you this, let's say we were using iray as a production renderer or as an animation production renderer. Same scene, you see what it looks like here? I'm just going to change to production rendering, and I'm going to make a production render. Just to prove to you that what you're seeing is not a preview, but the real thing. Same exact rendering. Any resolution, animation, you'll get the same result. So this makes it quite different than some of the other solutions where the high-speed active shade portion is a preview or a scene setup component, but you're not actually sure that what you're seeing is going to be exactly what you're going to render. In this case, it's exactly the same. And as iray in the past, it uses all of the same materials, Pro materials, Autodesk materials, Mia materials, Arc and Comp materials, photometric lights, area lights, HDR maps, sun and sky model. All of these shaders and light sources work in both iray production and in iray active shade. Exactly the same, no difference. So let me just do one more scene for you. We try to cancel that. And let's open up. This is an old traditional Mac scene that you've probably seen from a long time ago. It's one that they used to render, and it would take hours and hours to render as an example. But let's just show you what it looks like in active shade. All the light here is coming in from the ceiling, through slats in the ceiling. So it's a difficult lighting situation. The light is coming in through here, bouncing around. There's no direct lights in the scene. You can see the mirror reflecting here. And I can simply pick up the mirror and hopefully just move it. Well, I moved the frame, not the mirror. Let's move the mirror too. And there you go. So that's my demo. It's very simple, but I'm really, really happy to say that we finally, in cooperation with Autodesk, a lot of work on Autodesk part to make this work really well. A lot of development, put it together and got iray in as a active shade render. And that's what I have to show today. Thanks.